this conversation going then. This week we're talking about verse 44 of the Tao Te Ching as discussed in the book Change Your Thoughts, Change Your Life, Living the Wisdom of the Tao by Wayne Dyer. And of course, this is our Saturday morning mastermind. And I'm here with my good friends Chris and Jason and Karen. And oh, it does say Catherine is in the room. So I don't know when she jumped in. Weird. I was so busy looking at the Facebook chat that I didn't see you jump on there, Catherine. So I'm hoping that you're still able to get some sleep. I hope everything's okay for you. Okay, so anyway, we're recording. Who wants to jump out and say hey?
Hey. Hey, it's for cows. I'm Karen Lohoff, and I'm originally from Wyoming, so you never know what I'm really going to pop out with before I get civilized over here in Arizona, where I've been for 40 years.
Arizona, all right. Hey, Jason Roberts here from Florida. It's great to be here. Hope everyone's doing well and looking forward to a great discussion.
Chris here from Chicago. Hi, everyone. Welcome.
Awesome, guys. Okay, so who wants to read this verse?
44, huh?
Mm-hmm. Verse 44. Read it, Jason.
I'll give it a go if I can find it. Let's see here. All right, 44, verse 44, or as they write it, the 44th verse. Okay. Which means more to you, you or your renown? Which brings more to you, you or what? I say what you gain is more trouble than what you lose. Love is the fruit of sacrifice. Wealth is the fruit of generosity. A contented man is never disappointed. He knows when to stop, is preserved from peril. Only thus can you endure long. And that's the 44th verse of the Tao Te Ching. As written, I guess, by Dr. Wayne Dyer.
Awesome. Thanks, Jason. Yeah, I think the verses are, I think he said at the beginning of the book that he chose the verses based on how he read, 10 different translations of the Tao Te Ching and chose the version of the verses according to what spoke to him. Now, I don't know if he chose a different one each week, like a different translation or not each week, but each for each verse, or if they all came from one translation or what. I'm not entirely sure, but the verses are the words of Lao Tzu as translated by somebody in one of those 10 versions, and then the chapter, of course, is by Wayne Dyer. So what's your first thoughts when you read that, or after reading that?
Well, I'm not really sure what he means by renown. What do you think?
I'm thinking, kind of my first thought on that is whether it's you or how you're known or how people see you or your, what was that, Chris?
Reputation.
Yeah, like your reputation. Yeah.
Okay.
So.
Okay.
Which is funny because it's kind of like we have this secret ego for our own reputation. That's how I feel, at least. I was like, oh, my renown. Because you don't even think of yourself. You think of how other people think of you.
Okay. Well, it says what you gain is more trouble than what you lose. you know, sometimes I do feel like that, and you know, like not even wanting to get into anything because it's going to be like more trouble than it's worth. Is that what he's talking about?
Possibly. I think that so what you gain is more trouble than what you lose. Seems like he's trying to say something with that. I mean, I guess it could be that, you know, that it's more trouble than it's worth, or maybe it's where your focus is, whether it's on whether you're more concerned about your reputation or whether you're more concerned about your own personal happiness. And when you sacrifice maybe your own personal happiness so that you can focus on, you know, improving your reputation in the world, or looking a certain way to everyone else, or trying to keep up with the Joneses, you know, that sort of thing, versus following your own true heart and what seems really to be the right thing for you. What do you think? It's kind of like it's trying to make us think about that, about the difference between our spiritual life in the world, or our spiritual journey in the world, versus all of the, you know, it keeps talking about all of the world of the 10,000 things, and that we are in the world, but we're not of the world. And when we are focused on trying to be so concerned about our reputation in the world, then we aren't focused on that aspect of us that is not of this world. And so that contrast is what he's trying to get us to think about, and how we can.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Something that's interesting about what you just said is like you brought up the fact that the idea that it says so much, or it relates so much to a lot of things. You know, there's quite a few ways you can look at it, and that's something kind of interesting about these verses, is that like he seems to have a very simple way of saying things, but it seems to like encompass like, you know, everything or something like that. Everything. There's a lot of them.
So is he saying to
language, but it covers a lot.
So then is he saying kind of to, you know, it's where like your focus is, where if you're focused on what you gain, or if you're focused on what you lose, type of thing. You know, if you focus on sacrificing your, you know, and being generous, then you will automatically receive love and wealth, that you don't even have to think about those things, but think about, you know, focus on giving and letting go, and you know, you won't have to necessarily focus on what you receive. If you focus on what you're receiving, then it's more trouble than I don't know.
Yeah, that's actually an interesting way of looking at it. How you focus on it. Is that's kind of what he's asking. You know?
A content man is never disappointed. So
I wouldn't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I think when he's talking about that, well, when you were just saying about focus on what you're receiving versus focusing on, what was it that you said, Jason? I'm sorry. I lost my train of thought there for a second.
Focus on what, on how you can you know, how on your generosity and your sacrifice, and, or, you know, not like you're dwelling on it, but focus on giving value, on, you know, providing, and, you know.
Oh, I remember what I was going to say is that, thanks for, for jogging my mind. When you're focused on receiving, that's when you're attached to those expectations and the outcome, versus what he's been trying to tell us all along is to stay in the moment of, because this is all we really have, is this moment right here. And when we're focused on trying to please the ego or please other people, or, you know, have a great reputation or whatever, or we're trying to accomplish a thing, then we're always focused on the future, or focused on something not right now. And when we can kind of let go of that, then we automatically, like it was saying here, you know, love is the fruit of sacrifice. And I think that in some ways I like it, it likes to say sacrifice, but when you're focused in the moment and you're just being love, that there really isn't any sacrifice, because you're not attached to an outcome, and you don't have these like expectations of what you hope to get or hope to prove or hope to do or whatever. Is that you are just simply being love, and you naturally have where it was talking about the wealth is fruit of generosity. I mean, you naturally have this kind of life wealth because you aren't so worried about trying to accomplish something or be attached to an outcome, or I don't know, is that?
Let me hop in here. Because Jason messaged me. The last thing I need to do is try and figure out how to get to Facebook now. You know what? I feel like I have this large monitor because it used to be a TV, you know, kind of like in the kids' room or something. But it's so tiny. I mean, I'm trying to have my verse up here, and I'm trying to have, it's just crazy. But talking about receiving, you know, mentioned earlier, Jason, that you don't really, you know, your family and your friends have all been around and been willing to help, and you don't really like to ask them. And I was thinking how I feel, you know, I'm always like, it's just really uncomfortable for me when people, you know, like bring in dinner. I mean, I'm thinking about when you have a baby, you know, they bring in dinner and you think, oh, I've never made this nice a dinner for my family. But part of it is, like you were saying, Samantha, you know, they like to say sacrifice. But when people are giving you love, I mean, this is all kind of silly when I think about it, because I went over to see what had happened to you. I figured you'd have on your Facebook wall, you know, I went splat and this happened. I didn't know what had happened to you. And there were a couple of gals there that so nicely said, you know, geez, if there's anything we can do for you. And then I think you said, oh, it's so nice of you girls. So I assumed that they were, you know, because I always think from my age vantage point, you know, a couple of daughter females trying to get something together. But when people do something for you, you know, it is love. It's not a sacrifice thing. They are doing love. I mean, when I brought up this thing about the dinner, you know, when I had a baby, I mean, this one gal brought over, she had this like glass mason jar of spaghetti sticks, you know, the dry spaghetti that you make spaghetti with. And I mean, she had a little sauce, and, you know, I never in a million years would have thought of putting that together so that somebody could have dinner when they wanted. You know, they could have it at 3 a.m. if they felt ready to have spaghetti dinner. And so it gives people the opportunity to come to you and say, here's something I can do, and I think it'll make you feel better, and it'll make me feel better. if you'll let me give it to you.
Very good point. Very good point. Yeah. Yeah, I guess that's kind of isn't that's kind of an example of us being in our own head and not really seeing how things unfold for everyone else as well. And so I guess kind of what I'm getting out of what you're saying is if we're not receptive to that, then we're kind of cutting off the opportunity of others to express that love.
I think that's true, because you find out somebody that's, really independent and really, going gangbusters and really doing well in their life. And you think, how can I contribute to this person? And then you find out that, oh, well, here's something, and I could make spaghetti or something, So so yeah, that is what I mean.
Yeah. Awesome. Great. And I liked what you were saying.
Though? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Jason.
Oh, please go ahead.
I was going to say, isn't it funny though how whenever something tragic happens to someone else, or even just, I don't know, in general, we want to help people. We have this desire to help others, and we want to make their lives easier in some way, or we just want to assist them if they're down or whatever. But yet then when you're the person who's down, you don't ask. You don't want to ask for.
Yeah. I think I get what you're trying to.
Samantha, your screen.
But yeah, you're right. We have a tendency to not want to ask for it or even accept the help. I think part of it is because, especially when it's fresh, I was feeling like, accepting help or even recognizing the help made it all real. And that for that first 24 hours, you're just trying to be like, please let me wake up out of this. Please let me this be a bad dream, and, and so I tell you though, it's funny because when something happens so abruptly and so significantly that everything all of a sudden gets thrown into chaos, and when I look back at what happened to me, I'm amazed that I was able to make so many decisions at the time that it happened, and still, everything was going on so quickly, and I had to make so many decisions so instantaneously and deal with so many people all at the same time, because everybody was coming to help me. It was amazing. And they all wanted to know how they could help, and I'm like, I don't know. I'm just in a lot of pain, and I don't even know quite what happened yet, but and I think it seemed like an eternity, but it was only like probably 3 or 4 minutes since all this was happening. And when I look back on it, it's actually kind of empowering, if I can think of it this way, that, gosh, when I'm thrown into a situation, I can handle it. I can handle it. And when something happens, there will be people there. There will be somebody there that, even if you are that independent person going through your day, doing stuff, not really, relying on anybody and trying not to rely on anybody, you may feel like that you're all alone, but then when in the time of, of need, that, there will be people there. So, don't add that to, my, feeling of being alone, or feeling of like, oh no, of worry, what would happen if this, or what would happen if that. So it's a lot of revelations, a lot of realizations, I should say, that happened through that, but yeah, it's definitely that closing off that you just like, I did this, or this happened to me. It didn't happen to you. No reason for you to, break up your day, or, but I like that, Karen. I mean, that is, it's an opportunity for people to show, that they care about you. And whereas if they just kind of showed that on a regular day, you might think it weird, but if, so I don't know. I don't know. Again, I guess we bring ourselves out of our own head and out of our own thinking. If we're managed to do that, then we can see it from other people's perspectives and appreciate it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Like something related to what Karen was saying, like about like of someone offering you food or something like that. Then like, yeah, when you give something out of love, a lot of times you don't feel like you're sacrificing anything, especially if it's something simple. But when I first heard this verse or was just reading it, man, I thought of parents, and I thought parents sacrifice a lot. Like, love is the fruit of sacrifice, and some relate that to parents. Even though I'm not a parent myself, I relate it to my own parents.
Yeah.
Yeah, with parents too, it's well, I mean, I don't know about all parents, but for me, it wasn't about trying to, accomplish these great. I mean, obviously, I want my kids to be great, and that's not what I'm saying. But it wasn't like I had this like goal in mind of, okay, I'm going to have kids, and they're gonna, they're going to be straight A students, and they're going to go to college, and they're going to be doctors, and they're this and that and the other, right? I didn't have that whole stair step of ideas of what I was trying to accomplish or expectations or whatever. I just wanted them to feel loved and have them enjoy their lives, and just kind of take that day by day. And I think when we kind of look at things that way versus this path of expectations, is that we can focus more on what it is that we truly want, which is that love, to give that love. And whether that is to your kids or whether it is to your friends and family or whether it's to somebody walking down the street, is just to focus on that instead of, who knows, all this other mumbo jumbo that we think we're supposed to do or act or be or whatever. It's those expectations or what we're trying to prove, that's what gets us in trouble, right?
Well, I have to say these two conversations, I don't know why I'm saying two. It's because I'm looking at a screen that has me in between two of you. So Catherine recommended to me Matt Kahn last week, whom I'd never heard of. And I happened to go and catch one of his videos, and my gosh, I spent 5 days listening because, all of the stuff was pretty long, and I hadn't planned to take so much of my time, and it was so meaty and so meaningful and so powerful. And I was trying to get it right. For me, I seem to need, it really helps me to have the words. And fortunately, there was a transcript. And so I was able to go and work through the words. And there's 3 things, and I think they all apply to what we've just talked about here. 1, we need to love ourselves. If we want to have our lives be the way that we want our lives to be, if we want to manifest our reality changing into what we want it to be, then a big piece of that is loving ourselves, which I think, Jason, in general, or at least it sounds like since you've followed the call, which has been longer than I have, you've really picked up on a lot of things that have helped you, love yourself, feel good about yourself, feel that power in yourself to be able to, stem the conversation inside that's not helpful, probably the ego reeling about trying to get up. So loving ourselves. And what's interesting is I've said I love myself before listening to different people. I'll try that on. I love myself. But man, after listening to him, I was saying, I really do love myself. And I loved myself when I did this. And I went back as far as I could remember. And I just went through the years a little bit and said, and I loved myself when I gave myself this friend and stuck with it and created a long lasting friendship and, all those things. So that's one. And another thing that's important is, if I can even think about what these other two things were now. One is changing it up, and you pretty much have to change it up. I mean, I've been in that spot where the world was my oyster, and I could just kind of, feel like I was a powerful maven and all kinds of stuff. It was pretty incredible, and it was really a long time ago. But, it's a definite change when you feel like, oh no, I am going to need some help, or I did need some help. I'm really glad those people helped me, and I hope they'll be around if I need, further help. And I mean, it is a switch, and you're switching it up. But he said, make it even as he said, every day do some things like even if you just put your left sock on first when you've always put your right sock on first. And I'm not sure I need to go back, but I think the reason for that is to tell your subconscious mind, hey, I'm still in control here. And I think, I definitely need to shake up my subconscious mind. And the third thing is a really good and powerful one, and I can't think of it right now because there's some noise in the background. And I know that I haven't been doing what I needed to do here, so I'll get off for a moment.
Yeah, when you think of the third one, that'll be awesome. Thanks for sharing that, Karen. I love that. I absolutely love it. And that makes perfect sense, that changing it up thing about, even if you're just putting a different sock on, just that, because it makes you think, it makes you pause in your daily habits and make a change, a conscious change, even if it is something as simple as, doing something with your right hand or your left hand versus your right hand, or, and that can be a huge thing. I mean, it's so silly. It seems so silly, right? But I can see that making a big difference just because you're in that moment right here, right now, thinking about, changing something in some way, and you're taking that action to consciously make a change. I love it. I love it. Makes you stay focused in the moment. Shoot, we didn't even talk about what was in the chapter today. We pretty much just talk about the words.
Yeah. Well, I want to say what you were saying, Karen. Yeah, there's a lot of that really hits home because there's a lot of good stuff in there. I mean, I know what you're talking about. And sometimes just we can say that stuff in our head, we can think it in our head, but saying it out loud has just such a bigger impact. And that's one of the things I realized by masterminding with good people like you, is that going ahead and putting in that tiny little bit of effort of speaking it out loud and letting it be reabsorbed, letting you hear it, rather than it just being in your head it's much more powerful. And then that thing about switching something over, like Samantha was saying, that's something I actually experienced after going through, spending some time masterminding with people, that I didn't do it consciously. I just noticed I was doing it. It was, cause and where I noticed it the most was, when shaving, cause I'd always shave at a certain pattern, a certain way, so I wouldn't cut myself and all that, it was a habit, like you said, Samantha. And it's funny how when you see a shift in yourself, you can actually see a shift in your habits. And I mean, it's hard to explain, but it's there. You know, it really is. So.
Yeah, I think it's that when you start being more conscious of what you're doing, and that you get this larger awareness of everything in your life. Go ahead, Chris. I saw you were thinking about something.
No, I was just thinking, yeah, I really get noticed when I shave, because otherwise I have a big old gray beard and I feel super old.
But I think like our thinking like puts us into these habits or these rituals or these cycles that we either can't break out of them or we don't want to break out of them because they give us some sort of stability, you know, and it's not until you have a shift into your a shift that allows you to kind of be, you know, kind of regain your power or feel a little bit more in control, or, you know, where you start to be able to let go of those habits that really, you know, hey, they're insignificant habits and they don't really, you know, you're just holding on to them because it's like a warm blanket or something, you know, it's something you're used to. And when you start being able to make those shifts and allow those changes, you start allowing these changes in your habits as well. That can be good, because sometimes the habits we develop, the cycles that we get into, can keep us from, you know, even though they make us feel safe, they can keep us from getting to that next step that we want to be, you know. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And that brings back up the number one thing that she was talking about was the love ourselves. And Catherine or Karen, when you were talking about how you went back and you looked over things in your life and you could say, oh, I love myself for this and I love myself for that. I love it when I did this and that and the other. And we get in these habits of talking negatively about ourselves, right? Is that we I don't know, we get so focused on the things we don't do right, and then we get in the habit of talking bad about ourselves or saying nasty things or whatever. And this thing where you're talking about taking the time to think back and go, okay, well, I love myself when I did this and that and the other, that's making that little change in the habit and helping us remember, hey, you know, not everything that we do is bad, and that not everything that we do is important enough for us to berate ourselves for. Is that really we need to remember why we do love ourselves and the awesome things about ourselves versus all this mumbo jumbo, because we all make mistakes. Everybody makes a mistake. Everybody has things that happen that we probably didn't make the best choice on or whatever. But when we start staying all focused on that, having these nasty habits of talking down about ourselves, that's when those bad habits can start to really become detrimental, particularly when they're mind habits. Whereas if we can start thinking about the things that we love about ourselves, then changing those habits. And in that book that we talked about before, what to say when you talk to yourself, that was a huge one on changing the way that you talk to yourself. And that was all about changing your habits and changing and kind of thinking right now, what do I want my life to be like, and start talking to yourself that way. I know I've kind of gone off on a tangent, but that's what that made me think of.
I've got the third one. Oh, sorry.
Share it.
It's take the time. And I don't know why I couldn't remember it, because I've literally typed out several times, take the time, with a space in between the words and letters and 2 spaces in between the words, so I can see it, because this is a big one for me. I've realized that part of what I deal with is I give myself ADHD, ADD, all these different things by going through my day and trying to pack in, seeing as many videos as I can, listening to so many, calls, writing out so many posts, doing, just all these things. And I've actually got a place in my Word documents of day to day. And I mean, if I were to simply pull out one day, I would have so much stuff that's undone. You know, so many things that I've picked up that I've really wanted to follow somebody and get their expertise, and I've got, you know, a hitch. I've got a paragraph or two or 6 or 8 pages or whatever, and it's like left undone, and I've forgotten them, and I come back a year later and I say, oh, how come that name's familiar? And so I've been trying to learn to take my time, and I've also tried to do that with the computer. I've told you before, I really, you know, just really wangles me up when I get on the computer and I can't get the start button to work, or I can't get, you know, I can't get past the administrator saying, you don't have the right password. I don't even have a So take the time. Just take the time. And he says it'll just smooth out. It makes me think of, you know, you make a bed and you've got this blanket that clings to the sheet or whatever, and you've got all these ridges, and if you just pull on it, it can be flat and smooth and comfortable. And so that's the last one.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, this Matt Kahn, he's kind of an interesting character. He's a good philosopher. He talks a lot about compassion and love. He's quite knowledgeable. This verse back here, what you gain is more trouble than what you lose. Ooh, I thought of money with that, because the verse right before it is, which brings more to you or what you own. So that totally comes up with me in terms of like how much I have, or how much I think I have, or how much I think I need. And so it kind of puts a spin on it, because sometimes when regardless of money, sometimes I've learned some lessons and I've been like, well, you know, it's me is what is important, you know, and it's not really what I have, it's who I am. I mean, y'all can relate to that.
Yeah, that's a good thought there, for sure. I think we all can sense that, and you know, in one way or another. I was thinking also about, well, what you're saying about telling yourself that you love yourself, in contrast to, you know, being hard on yourself or telling yourself bad things. I think there's an in-between too, where we just sort of ignore the good things. We're like, oh, well, you know, we don't, not that we're, you know, we're definitely not saying, oh, I love this about myself. I love that I did this, and I love that I did that. But we're just saying, oh, that's just what I do. I ignore it, and you don't ever really give yourself any credit at all. And I think that can almost be as bad as being difficult with yourself. You know, so because it can leave a lacking. It can leave yourself feeling like you're you know, never getting any sort of a feedback or credit on it. And you know, and then it can also make your surroundings or your environment much smaller, or seem much smaller, because there's almost like there's no opening, you know, to feeling good about the things that you're doing. You know, they're not, you know, they may not be huge things, but they make you feel kind of good about being able to be there for somebody, or you know, whatever it might be. And so it's sort of a way for you know, the light of the world to kind of come into your life. And sometimes we have to take, you know, charge and you know, take the time to allow that light to come in, even if it's from our own actions, you know. So Yeah, we definitely need to not, need to be mindful of the words that we use in our own head, and switch those around, and but also give ourselves the recognize when we're kind of ignoring our own successes and our own the things that we do, and give ourselves some credit, because there's not always people around to kind of give you credit, or give you a pat on the back, or recognize you, and you got to realize that most people are walking around in our own heads anyways. We kind of have to get kind of jarred out of that to then be back into the world, so to speak, but the contentment part, before my recent accident, I was feeling pretty content, and I was feeling pretty like, okay, things are finally smoothing out. Things are going, I've worked hard and I've got it to this position, and things are going well. And I was pretty content. And then after, I certainly haven't been content for the past couple of weeks. And, so that the verse and what you guys were saying made me realize, maybe that, that being content with what my position or where I was in life at the time, I guess did rest upon some of the things I had or where I was, and that allowed me to feel relaxed and feel in place and confident. And so being stripped of a lot of these things, being stripped of to do for myself, and my car, and just being able to do a regular routine, really caused me to not be content with myself in my life. So, I mean, that, in thinking about it that way, I'm realizing that, yeah, I wasn't content in myself, but I was content with my surroundings and the environment that I had created for myself. When all that was, basically, stripped away or destroyed, it was sort of, that was a big kind of a realization, I should say. Now that I think about it, that's that it wasn't coming from within me. It was something that it was my reaction to what I had, kind of created for myself. So I guess there's another level to it, another level to being content, and another level to your own power, to where no matter what happens to you, you can still be as content and as happy and as you ever were. So maybe one day I'll find that.
No, thanks for sharing that, Jason. I think that, it's wonderful when we can look back on things and realize so much. I mean, it's crazy how the world has a way of smacking us in the face sometimes and knocking us out of our daily routine and putting us in some completely different situation. And it's wonderful that you're able to look at it and see the different ways that you can grow, and the great stuff about what happened. I mean, that never feels great at the time, but then you look back and see where you've learned and gained and grown from that. And if it hadn't happened, then you wouldn't have these insights. And and that's the way it happens for, I'm not going to say everyone. I think a lot of times it happens, but sometimes people just get pissed and then they get stuck in that pissed off mode, and they can't go anywhere from that. And they get stuck even worse than what they were before. But even though the world's trying to say hello,
Oh yeah. It's very easy to get just stuck in the situation, and I mean, because every morning since I've woken up, and it's like Groundhog Day again into this nightmare, that, your life's upended, and it's like, what am I going to do? And, there's so many questions, and you know, still have the whole thing like it's just happening, running through your head, you know, where you can actually see it and feel it, and you cringe because you can, it's like you're there again. And I still, you know, kind of like a flashback, I still get that, you know, I still definitely can experience that. And then, you know, on top of that, there's all these other things that you might have been, that, you know, might be dealing with, that you know, that your mind then, you know, it's funny how it will hop from one thing to another. It's like, okay, well, okay, this isn't so bad. Well, what about this? What about that? You know, it's like, okay, well, that is, you know, and you deal with that. And then it goes, oh, well, then what about this? You know, it's like, well, what about the way this person treated you? And what about when this happened? And it's like, it's almost trying to bring you down. And each time you have to be prepared to nix it, to you know, stop it real quick and just get by it. Because I mean, I can only speak from my own experience, but you know, it's like every day the same things come into my head. And because I, you know, a lot because of that book that you spoke of, you know, what to say when you, what to say when you talk to yourself, something like that, you know, it does give you the tools to recognize and to immediately turn it around. And it's very powerful. If it's not making you feel like, you know, Superman, you can jump up and do with anything, but it definitely quiets those other thoughts. And you actually, with that space, can create new, better thoughts, new, better kind of reality, if not just in your own head, outwardly into your environments. Yeah, huge.
Yeah, I think that book is one. I mean, it seems so simple. That tiny little book could have such a huge impact, and it has made a huge impact on my life too. It just, because you get stuck in these things in your head that just keep repeating, and then they get you all in this anxiety or worry or stress or whatever, you know, those different things that happen, upset, even, you know, angry. You know, I get stuck in these random things that will come up that, particularly with my husband, you know, I have these things that used to really bother me, and but every now and then they keep coming up, these memories or upset feelings or whatever. And when I stop, you know, and just physically be like, all right, I've had enough of that thought process, I'm gonna change it, then I can write out statements of what I would rather those remembering things be, or what I would rather those words being repeated in my head were. And I can change the feeling inside of myself almost instantaneously just by doing that. It's so crazy, that emotional state is. You know, I was reading another book. I wish I had it here with me. I know I have it somewhere, but I still have a bunch of stuff packed from our move. And it was talking about how our thoughts are the actual thing that cause us to have emotions. Everybody used to think it's the other way around. The emotions are what cause us to think, and it's not. It's our thoughts are what preclude those emotions, and those thoughts are the things that we constantly have going in our mind, or those things that come up that you know, say this or that about us, or say to ourselves or whatever. And when we can just simply change the words that we're saying to ourselves, if we can completely change our own emotional state, we can completely change the way that we react to the world and we react to other people. It's crazy. In my mind, it's just so crazy how simple it is.
That's true, because
you gotta make the effort, right? You gotta decide. Go ahead, Chris. Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's true, because, you know, when you're going through something or you have a lot of emotions, it's like exactly what you're saying or thinking, you know, what you're thinking in your mind. So your thoughts are words, you know, in your head, and you're totally composing your own cacophony. You know, or like, you were saying about I don't know, Groundhog Day, or the idea of you know, I could really relate to that, Jason, when you were saying how you sometimes feel like you're not getting anywhere. I was really feeling like I'm not getting to where I want to be, you know, and sometimes like that's a thing. Dialogue, we forget, like, you know, all the good things that we've been able to do, and you know, sometimes when we're able to access that, we just think, oh, that was wonderful. I was able to do so many, you know, so many things for myself. You know, you've done a great job, you know, and there's many times where you're able to like access that, you know, but not always, you know. And then so like, you know, the idea of not being where you want to be. And so this verse, what you gain is more trouble than what you lose. So in a way, it's kind of like a state of mind where you think you need to get or be somewhere when you already have what you need. So the mind is like totally tricking you, and our emotions trick ourselves, I think, you know. Here's the other thing. Love is the fruit of sacrifice. I kind of have a hard time like saying to myself, I love you. You know, I'm like, oh, whatever. I don't know if I really do. That's what I'm thinking in my mind, you know. Mm-hmm. But sacrifice is like action. So if you do like, if I do 3 or 4 or 5 really good or beneficial things during the day, I feel that fruit of love for myself. So like that's where like action kind of comes in too. Like, you know, they say, oh, words are hollow or something like this. That's, which isn't totally true, but you know, action is kind of like says more than words. They say something like that.
Yeah.
Catherine posted in the chat. I want to read what she was talking about here. She talks about Byron Katie's The Work a lot because it helps you to address the thoughts that are coming into your head that you know, if they're causing you distress. And the first there's 4 questions. The first one is it true? And it's like, you know, so if you're saying something negative about yourself, or you know, something's coming up in your mind that keeps repeating that's causing you distress, is that you can say, is it true? Meaning, you know, is this really true, or is this just what I'm saying to myself? And and then the next question is, can you absolutely know that it's true? So it's asking you a deeper level of, you know, if you say, yeah, it's true, then it's asking you to think deeper on that. Can you absolutely know that it's true? Like, is this a fact, or is this just an opinion, right? Then the next one is, how do you react? What happens when you believe that thought? So if you think it's true, then you can sit there and say to yourself, okay, so if this was true, how am I reacting to it? What is it that's happening, you know, when you believe that thought? So when you believe that thought and you start feeling unpleasant because of it, then, you know, you're just causing yourself that distress that isn't necessarily necessary because the thing isn't really true. And then it says, what would you do without the thought? So if you didn't think that way, how would you react differently? Or if you changed that in your own mind, how would you react differently? And that's when you can, you know, really start to see that you can make those changes. So I wanted to share that because Catherine talks about that a lot. And, you know, that's one of those things. I mean, we have these crazy thoughts that come into our head. We think that they're so important, but yet when you really examine what they are, then you can identify, okay, you know, if this isn't really what I want to have in my life, I can make a change. So thanks, Catherine, for sharing that. And we are like 20 minutes after the hour. I know we got started late today, just because we were trying to figure out the whole recording thing and all of that. But anyway, everyone just kind of share some final thoughts for today, and then we'll wrap it up, and hopefully we'll still be about an hour for our recording.
I can jump out real quick. Thanks, Catherine, for that. yeah, I like what was said there. I haven't read that book, the work, but anything that can give you a kind of a systematic way of looking at yourself and really working through an issue is wonderful. With that self dialogue, Chris, like what you were talking about, I mean that's so true. And what took me back about that book when we were studying that book, and it was something that was really impactful for me. And I just want to say I'm going to revisit that and probably I'd be happy to do a mastermind with that as well, because it was so impactful for me. And one of the things that took me back from that, kind of took me aback about that, was that a lot of the things, a lot of the feelings and thoughts sometimes would seem to me to skip the thought process and go straight into like a knee-jerk reaction where you don't even have the thought, so like with what Catherine was saying is, analyzing the thought. Sometimes we don't even have the thought. It's just, this happened and all of a sudden we feel this way. We're not thinking, oh, this is that, so now I feel this. It's just this something, and then we just get this emotion, and that was what was really interesting to me, that they talk about the programming that we have allowed to kind of guide our lives. And I guess it goes back also to where we switching where I was going to shave, or what how you do things is, when you make that shift, you sort of break out of that programming and you allow yourself to be more manual and go into a kind of a different mode. And so when I was made aware of that programming and how it was able to immediately put me into an emotional state, even without the words in my head, even without the words saying, being negative or slightly positive or whatever it might be, was it's like you just start, it's the type of thing that makes people, I believe, think, well, that's just the way I am. That's just the way I am. That's how I am. So there's nothing that can be done about it. But in actuality, when you dig into it, it's this previous programming that has caused us to habitually react this way, and we've never had the skills or tools to combat it. And that's what that book does. So yeah, I highly encourage everybody to pick that up if they can. And it's really great to be here. I hope everyone has gotten some value out of this. I really enjoy this group, and thanks for having me. I hope everybody has a wonderful weekend, and take care.
Go ahead, Chris. I saw your hand over there, and so I was trying to outweigh you. When Samantha brought in the emotions, I remembered something else that had impacted my week. I have watched I've read an accounting of an interview that James Altucher did with Jewel, the musician, the singer, the young girl. And I was so impressed with the whole thing. And she talks about when she notices that her emotions seem to be kind of flaring, kind of out of control, as sometimes we all experience. She does something that she calls watching the hands. And he says, well, what do you mean? And she said, well, I just take note during the day how many times I open doors for people, how many times I shake hands with people. Just pay attention to your hands and what you're doing. It's essentially your acts. And I thought about, the times that I pick up these little puppies. They go in and out so fast of our lives. We've lost track of who's related to whom, and which names we've had for which groups, and it's just so nice to pick them up and talk with them and nuzzle them and pet them and let them kiss us, and just these things that we know are things that they could have missed out on in their lives, and that we can provide, so that when they get into their forever family, they're loving. And unfortunately, that made me think of yesterday. I didn't realize one was behind me, and I lifted up my foot to move us. I knew I had kicked some one of them, and I kicked this cute little tiny little puppy that we have that looks just like a little bear that you would get at a Yellowstone Park souvenir shop. And her eye was just like a triangle. When somebody's been smashed in the eye, it has this little hurt, and it just killed me. She's going to be okay today, but just watch your hands or watch your feet. Sometimes you need to watch both. And I echo Jason's sentiment. We get so much out of this, and we hope that whoever is able to watch this and be apart from the outside is getting the same. Thank you.
Oh yeah, thank you, Karen. No, we do. We certainly get a lot. I get a lot from this mastermind, and it's really delightful to get to. I knew that I was in a comfortable place when I came here, and whoever's watching or is gonna watch the replay, it's a kind of a welcome place where we felt good talking about stuff, and we get to go very deep in subjects, and feel really good about our class today. So thank you all very much. Love you guys.
Sorry, I was making notes. I wanted to write down. I was trying to write down all these different things that we've talked about today, so I can be sure and reference them in the blog post when I get the replay post done. And yeah, I wanted to, Karen, if you you mentioned that interview with Jewel, I kind of wrote notes hoping I can just find it with Google search, but if you have a link to it on YouTube or something, you could share it with me. Okay, so anyway, guys, thank you everybody for joining us today on the Saturday Morning Mastermind. This week was verse 44 of the Tao Te Ching, and we were talking about that. We didn't even get a chance to discuss the part that Wayne wrote in the book, but that's all right. I think sometimes that our own discussion is just as valuable, because there's a lot of people that have read Wayne's words, so these are our words and our experiences and knowledge, and that's wonderful. So anyway, have a great week. Awesome, amazing weekend. If you like this video, click like, share it, subscribe to us on YouTube. You can also visit our blog at mindsetmasterycollective.com. And again, that's the book. Jason's holding it up. Change Your Thoughts, Change Your Life, Living the Wisdom of the Tao. That's what we are discussing right now. And if you want to meet up with us, you can hook up with us anytime, Saturday mornings at 10 a.m. Eastern. You can go to zoom.saturdaymorningmastermind.com, and that will take you to the instructions for joining this discussion. So you can get on with us any Saturday morning. So with that, bye for now.